Hi, everyone. Greg Heilman here with the Sound on Stage. I hope you all had a nice Thanksgiving and are starting to lean your way into the holiday season. And it's because of that season that I'm here with my guest, the wonderful Alan Fitzpatrick. Alan has been acting for over 50 years in shows across the country. And while he's a man of many talents and wears many hats, including those of singer, producer, and director, what I want to talk to him about today is his holiday show, his one-person telling of A Christmas Carol, the beloved Dickens classic that I had the opportunity to take in this past weekend at Aspire Repertory Theater in Northgate. Welcome, Alan.
It's great to be here. Thanks for inviting me, Greg.
Not at any time. So, your version of A Christmas Carol is new to me, but it's not a new show. In fact, you've been doing this for a few years, I think. How did you get started with it?
Well, 2 years ago, Denise Winter, who is the artistic director of Key City Public Theater in Port Townsend, more or less commissioned me to write a solo show based on A Christmas Carol. We had had some discussions. I had never done a solo show in my entire career. I had done some two-handers, but never been on a stage all by myself for an evening. And I often thought that someday it might be a challenge that would be worth doing, although I was honestly a little anxious and apprehensive about it. But I decided to accept the challenge, and I sat down and wrote the adaptation in 2021. I began around August of that year, and it took about 3 months altogether to adapt the play and also memorize it, which was as long a process as was the writing.
Yeah, I
And,
bet.
and then self-staged it, and then performed it in a couple of venues that December, and then subsequently last December, and this would be the third season of these performances.
I guess it was smack dab in the middle of COVID then that this kind of you built this out.
I started thinking about it. Yeah, I mean, things had certainly. It was in the middle of COVID. Things had certainly not normalized yet. Right. As a matter of fact, I think I even did it that first year with some folks still apprehensive about returning to the theater. It finally now, as we're speaking at the very end of November of 2023, things seem to have normalized a bit with that. But yeah, that's right. You've reminded me about how tough it was to get people out of their homes at that point.
Yeah, yeah, we're finally starting to see. I mean, it's kind of been I guess a line. Like if you look at a graph, right? The number of people that have been going to shows is definitely increased. I remember coming right out of COVID, theaters were maybe half full, and I know there was a lot of that apprehension. But yeah, now we're seeing full theaters, thankfully. Um, but it's so much to compete with, coming out, competing with not just anything that's outside, but competing with streaming in front of the TV, just getting people off the couch. Um,
Exactly. Right. No, I
so
mean, recently is this last February, I was in Port Townsend acting in a play there, and we had fairly small houses, surprisingly small. And then I just directed a play there about 6, 7 weeks ago, and we had full houses. And it wasn't really because of the offering as much as people are now comfortable about, they've had a long enough hibernation. They're less worried about infection, and they do want to come out and experience the unique qualities of live theater.
absolutely, absolutely. And speaking of the show, has it changed since you first staged it? Have you sort of ironed out some wrinkles as you've gone along with it?
Well, a couple of things regarding that. First of all, the performance you saw a few nights ago, Matt Gasurgis, a friend of mine, he's also producing my show in Michigan, and he wanted to do projections, which had never even crossed my mind because I do the show very simply. I could, if you wanted, I could do it in your living room tomorrow without much complication. But he likes projections, and he has a he has a full-size stage there in Michigan and 530 some seats. So he wanted to add some effects, and he said, "Can we add fog to some of the scenes?" And I said, "Sure." And he said, "What about projections?" And I said, "Well, I never thought about that, but sure, there must be a lot of images we could find, or that you could." Pay for both animated images and stills that would, support a greater visual complexity to the show. So that those were brand new, and I got to see them, but I've never gotten to see the show like taking place with me in front of them. So you had that experience, which I did not. The other way the show's evolved, I this year there were a couple of things that I had. That I left out. One of the major ones was the very first scene, the Christmas, or in the past. He goes into the past. Ebenezer Scrooge does, and in the novella and in some versions of the novella as have been written, there's a scene where he's a boy in school, and we meet his sister, fan. And I didn't do that in the first 2 years. But I thought, well, I know the show now. I think I can add another 5 minutes, get the show up to exactly an hour. So I added a little prologue to the show about Marley's being dead as a doornail, and then I added the scene with Fan and a 10-year-old Ebenezer. But otherwise than that, it's all pretty much the same. I've used the same sound cues that I spent weeks and weeks gathering back in 2021, and the show is similar. I mean, I've changed to some degree. I'm more comfortable with certain sections. It was quite daunting that first go around to do a solo show, to jump in there without a net. But now, even when you saw it, I had not done the show in 11 months, and I felt extremely comfortable without any concerns about suddenly not knowing where I was. I think the show, as I wrote it, will be part of my brain cells until the end.
Well, you play virtually every character in the show, and you're the narrator, you're Scrooge, you're all the ancillary characters. Do you have a favorite of the characters that you play?
Well, I've always had an affection for the Turkey Boy, as we call him. I did A Christmas Carol, the full stage version at ACT Theater here in Seattle, a couple of seasons, once as Marley and once as Scrooge. I, of course, love Scrooge and Marley, but I have a great affection for the Turkey Boy and for those weird little people who steal Scrooge's belongings and sell them to a fence near the end. I think because it's wonderful to play such really low class common folk. The pompous businessmen, I think, who discuss the passing of an associate of theirs late in the show. I enjoy them. There's a bit of that little snuff business. I embrace all of them. Tiny Tim, unfortunately, has a very small part. He's mostly referred to. It would be hard for me to impersonate, a 5-year-old boy, but I love them all in their own way.
Well, great. So you're going to be taking the show on the road here. You're leaving tomorrow, I think, to head out to Michigan, and bigger venues. What have you any idea what the advanced sales or how that's looking so far?
No, I leave that entirely up to the producers. I'm not working in any venue for some percentage of the house. It's just they'll bring me out as their guest on a flat fee basis, and I think that theater in Petoskey, Michigan I know it has over 500 seats, and I hope they sell out 100% to both shows. They have a very, as I understand it, a very enthusiastic and loyal audience. So that will be great. The interesting thing, and I'm not even sure I mentioned this to you, my friend Matt, who's the executive director of that theater, bringing me out next Saturday. There will be two performances, and then the next day, he and I are going to get on a prop plane and fly to Beaver Island, which is apparently only accessible by prop plane or by boat. And with a year-round community there of only a few hundred, I'll do the show in the community center on Beaver Island. I think that seats about 100, and I suspect that may be sold out since those folk there are so remote that they rarely get the opportunity to have professional live theater on their island. I don't know. They're both complete mysteries to me, but of course, I always hope that I'm going to play to full houses. And after Michigan, as you say, there are engagements first of all in Wenatchee. At the Wenatchee Valley College for a couple of nights, and then in Vashon, there are two performances at Vashon Repertory Theater, and then the final one is in Index, a new venue I just discovered, the Bush House Inn, which is a beautifully renovated 19th century inn, which has a nice event room with a stage. And that'll, unless someone else gives me a call, that will complete this season's offerings of Christmas Carol.
Excellent. Well, I'm gonna try to see if I can get out to Vashon and see it. I haven't been to the theater there yet. That's not too far. It's ferry ride that's right here from Southworth, which is my ferry terminal of choice, being here in Port Orchard. So I'm gonna try to get there, and I'm gonna try to get the word out to as many people as I can, because it is well worth taking in. It's different than your standard presentation of A Christmas Carol. I think you've nailed all the characters that you do, and I found it to be a highly entertaining hour of entertainment.
Thank you. I had first got the idea of it, Greg. I think it was 1992, when I was living in New York. I went to see Patrick Stewart do his pretty legendary one-man
Mhm.
show of Christmas Carol, and it struck me, and I thought was delighted that one actor could play so many parts and tell a story and keep me riveted. I think his was longer, at probably at least an hour and a half, and I thought, so that was in the back of my mind, that I never thought that I would do it myself, but I figured if he did it, it wasn't an impossible task. So, and I don't remember anything that he did. So when I was writing the adaptation, if his version had any effect, it was very subliminal.
Well, so what's next for you then after this, going into the new year? Do you have any shows scheduled after that? And then how can folks keep up with what you're doing?
Well, even in December alone, interspersed among these performances of Christmas Carol, I do portray Santa Claus in December, which is why this beard is
Yeah, you got the perfect beard for it.
full and gray. I appear at some events. It's a lot of fun to do that live with children. So that's 3 or 4 of those are coming up in December. And then at the very end of December, the Key City Public Theater, which had originally in Port Townsend, which had originally commissioned me to do this, asked me, they said, what if you did a different solo show this year? And I said, well, that's a challenge. It was a challenge to create that first one, but I'll see what I can do. And so over the last 8 or 9 weeks, I've written an adaptation of another Dickens piece, Great Expectations.
Oh,
And
okay.
I just finished the final draft a couple of days ago, and I want to. I won't be able to memorize the entire thing in the month of December, because it is almost December. But some of it will be off book, and some of it will be on book. But I'm going to present that on the 30th and 31st at Key City Public Theater in Port Townsend for an audience that gets to see that. I'm pretty happy with that. I've been tinkering and revising it, and it seems to tell the story in a very streamlined way in about an hour and 23 minutes. So that will finish up on New Year's Eve, and then in January, um, I was invited by the Fifth Avenue Theater in downtown Seattle, where I have actually done 28 shows, I think, over the last 18 years, to do Something's Afoot, the uh, sort of quasi Agatha Christie musical, as they call it, wherein we sing and people die and there's a murder to be solved. I think I saw that show live once a long time ago. I'm playing a colonel. That cast is quite extraordinary. I mean, I don't know the entire cast, but the ones I know, it is a lineup of some of Seattle's legendary stalwart actors, Brandon O'Neill and Ann Allgood, members of the core company. Sarah Rudinoff is in it. My partner Karen Scrindy is the understudy of Miss Tweed, who plays whom Sarah Rudinoff plays. It's just a cast of really talented actors of mostly of the old guard. I'm sure there's some young parts, some young blood in there as well, but it's going to be a wonderful reunion for those of us who've been around here in Seattle a long time, and directed by artistic director Bill Berry, and that will open in I think the middle of February and run till the end of March. And beyond the end of March, I don't know what the rest of 2024 will hold. I mean, I do have a website, which, if people are interested, they can Google, and I usually put it in all my programs, but it's not hard to find out what I've done or what I will be doing in the future.
Excellent. Well, I will be looking forward to Something's Afoot. I'll be there and reviewing the show as part of the Sound on Stage. So I look forward to that. Anne was in Sweeney Todd last year. And I know she was nominated along with you, I think, in the Best Supporting Actor category for our Heilman and Haver Awards when we were doing that. So
Right.
sounds like a great cast.
Yeah, she's great. I've known Anne since, I lived in New York City for almost 30 years, and Anne and our paths had crossed several times then. So when I came out here and realized she preceded me by a couple of years, and I found out that she was part of the community. We've had the chance to work together before. We've done some shows. We did Candide at the Fifth Avenue, and we did Oklahoma at the Fifth Avenue, and probably a couple of others that escapes me now. But I've not been on stage with her for quite some time. I think at least maybe a decade, and I haven't been at the Fifth since 2018. So I'm really looking forward to that. Just being back in familiar surroundings with people I respect and adore.
Well, Alan, like I said, I'll be there. Look forward to it. It's been great chatting with you about your show. And I will make sure to put all of the links for the venues that in the show notes for this interview, and we'll help get the word out. So once again, it's a one-person version of A Christmas Carol, the Dickens classic. It's excellent. I got to see it over the weekend, and I'm going to do my best to try to get to see it again when it's back here after your trip to Michigan. So thanks again for stopping by, Alan.
It's my pleasure, Greg. Anytime.
All right, excellent.